Okay. Have you ever really stopped to think about what the actual active ingredient in a medicine is, before it gets pressed into a pill or put in a capsule? Well, that core component is called the drug substance. And to really get our heads around why it's so important, we're going to use a surprisingly simple analogy.
Right, I know what you're thinking. A popcorn kernel? It might sound a little out there, but seriously, stick with me on this. If you can understand this humble little kernel, you'll understand the secret behind how every single safe and effective medicine is made. It all starts with separating the main ingredient from the final thing you buy. So let's dive into this core idea. Just think of it like this: the kernel versus the bag. That's really it. It's all about telling the difference between the raw ingredient and the finished product that's ready to go.
So on one hand, you've got the drug substance. That's our raw, unpopped popcorn kernel. In the pharma world, this is the active pharmaceutical ingredient, or API. It's the part that actually does the work. Then on the other hand, you have the drug product. That's the finished bag of popcorn, the kernel mixed with salt, butter, and all packed up. See the difference? One is the pure stuff, the other is the final product you actually use.
And this isn't just a quirky analogy, it's exactly how regulators think about it. There's a whole massive section in every drug submission, Section 3.2S, that's dedicated to just one thing: proving the quality of that kernel. They need to know precisely what it is, that it's pure, and that you can make it the exact same way every single time. So how in the world do you prove what something is at a molecular level? Well, you start by giving it a name and a completely unmistakable identity. It all kicks off with something called nomenclature. Fancy word, but it's just the official naming system. Every drug substance has a few different names. There's the generic one you might have heard of, a super complex chemical name for the scientists, and almost always an internal code name from its development days. And yep, it's the exact same for our popcorn kernel. It's got an official botanical name, a common name we all use, and maybe the company calls it PC001. The whole point is that all these different names point to the very same thing. There is absolutely zero room for confusion. But a name isn't enough. Next up, you need its structure. And this isn't just a description, it's the molecule's unique fingerprint. It's a detailed map showing every single atom and exactly how it's connected to its neighbors. This is the ultimate, undeniable scientific proof of what it is. Just imagine having a crazy detailed blueprint of our popcorn kernel. It wouldn't just be a yellow blob. No way. It would map out the hard, starchy center, that all-important drop of water inside, and the tough outer shell. That's the level of detail we're talking about for a drug molecule.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting. No drug substance is ever 100% pure. It's just not possible. There are always these tiny, trace amounts of other things, and they're called impurities. They might be little leftovers from the manufacturing process, or even tiny bits of the drug that have started to break down over time.
I mean, think about it. Any bag of popcorn you've ever had has a few duds at the bottom, right? The unpopped kernels, maybe a little piece of husk. You kind of expect it. The crucial thing for regulators isn't having zero impurities. It's about identifying every single one, knowing where it came from, and proving, with data, that the amount is way, way below any level that could be harmful. Okay, so knowing what the kernel isn't enough. Regulators also need to know the exact recipe to make it. And that recipe has to be laid out in painstaking detail so you can be sure it's followed perfectly, every single time, with no exceptions. The whole manufacturing process is documented as a super precise step-by-step flow. For our kernel, that means everything from when to harvest the corn, to how you remove the husk, to sorting them by size, and, this is a big one, drying it to that perfect 13.5% moisture content. Every single step is controlled. And you can't just write down the recipe and say, "Trust me, it works." Nope. You have to prove it with something called process validation. This is all about providing hard, cold data that shows your manufacturing recipe doesn't just work once, but that it works consistently, producing the exact same quality batch after batch after batch. So what does that actually look like? Well, for a popcorn, you don't just dry one batch of kernels and call it a day. You run at least 3 separate batches in a row, and you document everything. And if every single one of those batches hits that critical moisture target, bam! Your drying process is now officially validated. It is proven to be reliable and repeatable. All right, so we've identified our kernel and we've perfected the recipe to make it, but we're not done yet. There's one last giant piece of the puzzle: proving that every single batch you make is good enough, and figuring out exactly how long it's going to stay that way. This is where the specification comes in. You can just think of it as the final exam, the official quality scorecard for the drug substance. It's a list of tests and the exact results you need to get for each one. If a batch fails even one of these tests, it's out. It cannot be used, period. And here is the proof in the pudding. This table is what batch analysis looks like. We've got our 3 different batches of kernels, and you can see the real data for moisture and the pop rate. And the most important part, that last row. Pass, pass, pass. This is the real-world data that backs up every single claim about quality and consistency. Now, before our little kernel can become part of a medicine, it often has to be stored or shipped in huge quantities. And the packaging for this stage, what's called the container closure system, is incredibly important. Its job is to protect that pure substance from anything that could mess it up, like moisture, light, or even just the air. So these kernels aren't just getting tossed in a burlap sack. Oh no, they are packed in special, triple-layered, sealed drums where all the oxygen has been sucked out and replaced with nitrogen. Why go to all that trouble? It's simple. A degraded kernel means a degraded medicine. You have to protect the quality at every single step of the journey. And finally, the big question. How do we know how long the kernel stays good for? The answer is stability testing. This means they take batches of the drug substance and store them for years, literally in chambers with very specific temperatures and humidity levels. And they pull samples at regular intervals to test them and see if anything at all has changed. And after all of that, after all the naming, the structure mapping, the process validation, the endless batch testing, and years of stability studies, the whole thing, all that work, boils down to one single critical number: 24 months. That is the approved retest period. That is the scientifically proven shelf life for this raw ingredient long before it even gets close to becoming a medicine. So the next time you see a simple medicine, remember the kernel inside. Remember the unbelievable, unseen amount of work and rigor that goes into proving exactly what it is, how it's made, and how long it's guaranteed to last. It kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other complex parts of our lives are built on this kind of invisible, meticulous foundation?